It is the coldest time of year here on the East Coast, and while it's a literal ice storm outside right now, I wish I was joking. You're probably like me and are itching to either start seeds or head down to your local nursery and look around, maybe pick up a few treasures for the garden for this upcoming season. But here at least, we're still buried under a couple of feet of snow. The ground is frozen solid and there will not be any gardening to be had out here for a while yet. I haven't even been able to get into the greenhouse for a good 4 or 5 weeks now. But what we can do is plan. I've placed some seed orders and one of them is taking its grand old time, but I've gotten a couple of them. Another one is actually out for delivery today. It's actually bright and sunny today too, which is a nice change. So I found some footage this week of 2 gardens that we visited over the last year. One of them was in the middle of summer and the other one was actually over New Year's, and it was much warmer on New Year's Eve here on the East Coast. It was plus 5 or 6 degrees, that's Celsius, so it was above freezing. And there was no snow on the ground at this point. And we took a little family trip, spent a few days on the beach, and found a really amazing garden center that I had heard about, but didn't really know that it was that close to where we were staying. We came across it kind of accidentally. So I was so happy to be able to tour this place. But I'm gonna start with the footage of the Annapolis Royal Historic Gardens located in Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia. And if you haven't been here and live nearby, I highly suggest you go. It is so worth the trip. It's a very small entrance fee. You can wander around for hours. There's a cute little cafe where you can sit and have some snacks. But what I go there for is all of the garden inspiration. And the wonderful thing about visiting gardens like this is that they are always changing. So we try to go once or twice a year, but always at different times so we can catch different things in bloom. And instead of focusing on the varieties that we're looking at here, these specific varieties of these plants, because I'm not sure I'm going to remember them all, what I'd rather focus on is growing conditions, which is really important, and how certain things are grouped together for maximum impact. Now, when we visited the Annapolis Royal Historic Gardens, it was a little bit more late summer. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was mid-August. Their hardy hibiscus were in bloom, and these flowers are just gorgeous. I love the dark red color. This one is borage. Now their kitchen garden, I think they call it an experimental garden. They grow a lot of interesting food varieties in here. There's Jeff and the kids leading the way. I'm hanging back a little just to get these shots. There's a cabbage. Very typical to see marigolds and bachelor's buttons and sunflowers and things like that growing in a food garden. Brussels sprouts, I had some of those this year, but unfortunately the deer got them, along with quite a few other things this year. I love this woven fencing. It's just such an old-fashioned classic style. This looks like Thai basil. I love the purple flower spikes on the Thai basil, and the taste is pretty unbelievable too. I usually grow that every year. I think I have some more seed already for this year. This looks like anise hyssop, and I do have a white, oh, there's a white variety as well. I'd like to grow the purple variety too. I think I may have seeds for that. And this is in the mint family, so you'll notice if you see these plants, you might be able to tell from this footage that the stems are actually square, and that is classic of the mint family. This is a lace cap hydrangea. Some gorgeous lilies in full bloom. And I love how they've used ferns actually as an understory plant, because the lilies will cast a little bit of shade. It looks like they're grown in a part shade location anyway, which lilies can handle a little bit of shade as long as they get a good few hours of sun here and there. They are perennials, and by growing ferns around their base, when you cut the lilies back after they finish blooming, you won't get just bare ground and straggly looking stems left behind. Beautiful blue hydrangeas. These are always a favorite. This one would be an oak-leafed hydrangea. Oh, the rose garden. The rose garden is so well maintained and unfortunately has succumbed quite a bit to Japanese beetles. They've really been struggling with that over the last few years. Nice little shade garden with some hardy geraniums. I think lots of hostas, a little topiary. Now they have some really interesting sculptural elements in these gardens as well. I love this little bench full of butterflies. That was a favorite with the kids too. Adorable little fox. He's so sweet, look at him. And then lots of little meandering paths heading out into different areas of the garden. So the rose garden is amazing. You can walk around there quite a bit, but there are a couple of these smaller paths that kind of wind off to different directions of the garden. So we're in one of the more open areas now. This is hot and sunny. There's a lot of this big bright Rudbeckia. I see some echinacea. There may be some variety of perennial sunflowers, but they have a lot of bedding plants in this area as well. A lot of brightly colored annuals. I love this too. This is just driftwood and pebbles, very beachside. Just an interesting little sculptural element. There's some echinacea there on the bottom and some type of perennial sunflower. Being a mature garden, this place has a fantastic structure of mature trees and shrubs, and this is a great shot of 2 mature trees with different foliage colors. And those clipped shrubs in between are likely box, but I can't be sure from this distance. More of these little sculptures, puffins this time, and there are little plaques on all the art pieces that give the name of the artist here as well. This collection of heather is one of my favorite collections. Feel free to pause to read this info panel if you want. I think I was lucky to catch them in bloom like this. It really shows the different varieties, and they've grown together beautifully. Planted on a slope means good drainage, but the way they cover the ground is really great for moisture retention as well, so they shouldn't need much extra water or attention at this point, other than a bit of pruning. These tiny blooms are insect magnets, especially on a warm day like we had. The white ones are lovely as well. A few new ones planted here. This is what they look like when they're fairly recently planted, before they've all grown together. A vital part of any garden is a pond. This area has 2 ponds, one a little bit higher with a small trickling waterfall in between and a bridge over top. I don't think I got the bridge, but you can see the dense planting all around the pond, which is really good cover for wildlife. This area above the pond has mature hydrangeas, trees, and a large collection of daylilies. A beautiful double daylily and blue lacecap hydrangea. The color has started to fade a bit as the flowers mature later in the season. More on this side, and this is definitely peak season for these daylilies. There's such a variation in color in daylilies, which is why they are so popular for breeding. There's a lot more shade in this area, so there are a lot of mature rhododendrons and azaleas planted. Not in bloom right now, it's too late in the season for those, but I find the variation in leaf shape really fascinating too, now that you're not distracted by all of the flowers. I will always pause to capture a butterfly. We have now looped around almost back to the main building, and there is this beautiful fountain right before we get back to the cafe. It's a nice little spot to sit for a minute in the sun and listen to the water. As we get to the formal garden by the cafe, there are annuals and dahlias planted in this area. There's a large collection of dahlias that I didn't manage to capture this time around, so I'll put that on my list for next time. There is a lavender knot garden, and we are past lavender bloom time, but I can just imagine this all in full bloom. It's since been trimmed back. This combination of salvias, I think, and the lower growing ageratum is just lovely. Ageratum is sometimes called floss flower. The contrast in texture is a really nice effect. The ageratum comes in taller varieties that are popular with some cut flower growers as well, but it's not something that I've grown a lot of. There's a close-up of the salvia as the tall spikes, and then the floss flower, the lower ones. They're very fluffy flower heads. Very interesting texture. There's a close-up of the box, and I can't quite tell what is planted in between, but this is the most formal section, and glancing over that fence, you can see the tropical summer garden, another one of my favorites. I can only imagine the work it takes to keep those grass lines that crisp. Oh, we found a frog in the lavender. One of the driest parts of the garden, and there is where we found a frog. The sundial is beautiful, surrounded by these large trimmed boxwood. And one of the most notable features of this garden, this large, beautiful arch, this is covered in wisteria. So try to imagine when that is blooming in the spring. And I have not quite caught the wisteria in bloom. That might be a goal for next year. This is the main courtyard right inside the gate, and they often have little scavenger hunts for kids in this area. I think we were looking for fairy cottages this time. There are a lot of grasses in this section, a lot of annuals tucked in between. This is definitely more of a hot and dry area of the garden. And the Acadian cottage. Lots of Acadian history in this area. It's a really nice touch to have that in there. And now we get to Cosby's Garden Center and Concrete Creations that we visited on New Year's Eve. It was unseasonably warm, but still winter. There is a little bit of ice and snow on the ground, but it was basically clear and a nice easy hike through the woods. It was winter. However, the plants were not the big draw, as you can already tell. There were dozens of these concrete sculptures in this garden, and we found a few areas still under construction, including some sculptures in progress, so we will definitely be back next year to see how it's changed. Now, being winter, you would think that there would be no plants to look at, but it was really clear that the planting was done with winter interest in mind. Some areas don't have a lot of extra planting, but we did see some signs reminding us to stay on the paths because there are some rare plants, but a lot of them were dormant this time of year. There was a lot of lovely evergreen shrubs in a few of the areas, and being a woodland to begin with, it looks like it's been very minimally altered, and I love that. Outside of these sculptures, of course, but a lot of the rock formations look really natural. There was a lot of little hills that didn't look like they'd been changed in any way. Of course, I could be wrong, but if there were changes made, they were so well done, and everything seems to just fit really nicely into the natural landscape. So I highly recommend visiting this place if you are nearby. It is even more amazing in person, and I knew it would be a great visit. There's no entry fee, but they're also a garden center, so you can browse the plants they have while you're there, if it's not the middle of winter, and pick up a few things to take home. So I really hope that you enjoyed that footage. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you back for lots of upcoming garden content this season. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.